Is your own body a mystery to you? Do you wish that you could have a better understanding of how your body functions or what's happening inside of you? But do you find that those terms of anatomy and physiology are daunting and overwhelming? Welcome to Wonderfully Made, where the mystery of your body is revealed. Every organization has headquarters, a central place that controls every other activity. There's reporting that goes to the headquarters and there's information that flows out to the rest. Our body is very much the same, and on this evening's episode, I would like to introduce you to the headquarters of your body. Good evening and welcome to Wonderfully Made, where the mystery of your body is revealed with me, Khomotso Mogapi, right here on Life Destiny TV, your life, your destiny. Please don't run when I start mentioning words like the brain, the medulla oblongata, or in the hippocampus. Remain with me because I know and you know that you're dying to just know what is the brain, how does it work. This is your headquarters. The more you can understand about your own brain, the more empowered, literally, you can be. And this is what we hope to do with 2 episodes. Yes, we'll be taking it slowly. We'll be making sure you're with us every step of the way. So this is part 1 of our headquarters, where we introduce you to your own brain and the central nervous system. Now, when we talk about the central nervous system or the brain, what are we talking about? We're talking about the brain in itself when we're talking anatomy, and we're talking about the spinal cord and the nerves that go with it. So it's the central nervous system together with the peripheral nervous system. Don't worry if you don't understand any of these terms. What I need you to remember is the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves that come out from it. So what is the whole function of this really complicated thing that we're all scared to understand? The function of the brain is really to receive information from the external environment, but also from the internal environment. You'll get to understand that. So it's to receive information, to process it, a process we call integration, and then to have a response. So there is sensation, there is integration, there's a response. SIR, S-I-R. That is the function of your brain that you are going to understand at the end of these 2 episodes, meeting your headquarters. So let's start with the anatomy of the brain in general. When we look at the brain in the skull, you see there's the left hemisphere and there's a right hemisphere. This is called the cerebrum. The whole brain is called the cerebrum, and then there's a left side and a right side, and they're linked together in the middle. And if you've heard people talking about the gray matter and the white matter, the functioning block of the brain in itself, of the nervous system, is a neuron. So a neuron has a cell with a nucleus, but what makes it different from all the other cells is that it has what we call an axon. It has this long tail, which is what allows information to travel to the cell and away from the cell. So when we look at the gray matter of the brain, what we're looking at is a concentration of where the nucleus is. And when we look at the white matter, it is where the axons are running. Let me repeat that again. We're looking at the brain, right? And you know there's a gray matter and there's a white matter. And we've said the functional unit of every single system is what? A cell. But whenever I talk about a cell, I make it seem like it's this round thing with a nucleus on the inside and different things. But the cell of the brain is different. It's a neuron. You've seen the picture of it. It's got its nucleus on the inside. It's got little hairs that stick out to receive information. And it's got an axon, and this axon is covered with a myelin sheath. The myelin sheath is just an insulator to allow information to travel properly and at good enough speed. That is the building block of the whole brain. So now you know the white matter and the gray matter. You see the brain, the left side and the right side. I need to break a myth right here. There's an idea that other people are left-brained and other people are right-brained. The two different parts of the brain are both important. They do different functions. So there is no that you're right-brained or you're left-brained. Both sides of the brain need to be working fully. With that said, the two sides of the two hemispheres of the brain are joined together in the middle. And in the middle, we have what we then call, it's still part of the brain. We have the thalamus. You will learn about that. We have the hypothalamus. I'm only talking about the important bits here. And we also have the pituitary gland. We will explain what all of them do. And then from then on, we have what we call the midbrain. So this is where the pons and the medulla oblongata is. Everybody loves the medulla oblongata. And then from then on, then we have the cerebrum and we have the spinal cord. It's been a lot of terms right here in the beginning. I hope you jotted them down, all the different names, because when we come back, I'm going to tell you what each part of the brain does. So join us right after this. Welcome back to Wonderfully Made, where we're introducing you to the headquarters, which is your brain. So before the break, I spoke to you about the different parts of the brain. And I said, I hope you've written them down nicely, because now we're going to go into what exactly they do, just looking at broad ideas. So you have the left and the right hemisphere, and their function really is to integrate. Remember, you've written at the top, the function of this brain system is sensation, integration, and response. So the two hemispheres, what they do is they really do the processing and the integration of the different systems. Don't worry, we're going to put it together and give you some examples. And then we have what I said to be the thalamus, the hypothalamus, it's simply under the thalamus, and the pituitary gland. The thalamus really is the relay center. Whatever sensation comes through, it goes through the thalamus before it goes to the processing area. Do you understand? So any information that comes, what I'm looking at right now, goes in through my eye, it goes to the thalamus, and the thalamus says you need to go to the one of the hemispheres to be processed. That's the relay center of the thalamus. The hypothalamus is extremely important. Remember, I like talking about homeostasis, keeping an internal control. That's what the hypothalamus is responsible for. But it's also responsible for our desires, such as appetite and our passions and anger and such things. So keep that in mind. The pituitary gland is responsible for growth, for metabolism, and also for stress responses. Maybe you might like to know more about that. And then we have what we call the midbrain. This is where I'd spoken about the medulla oblongata and the pons and the different things. But it's there together with the cerebrum. And what it really does is that it keeps balance and tone. I'm going to give you more example when we go into the details of what all these systems does. So there was a sensation that came in, and the brain did the processing as it sends a response. If the response is that you are to be, let's take an example, a soccer player. You're running on the pitch. You need to run towards the ball. So you need to be moving your muscles. That goes down. A copy of that information, imagine this, goes to your cerebellum, which is the small brain. And when that copy arrives, it says the muscles need to be running along the pitch. But then you realize that the pitch is not really level. So the cerebellum is responsible for sending more information to say, step this way and step that way to allow movement to continue. That's keeping tone and balance. And then we have the spinal cord with all its various nerves going. It seems they're going outside, but if you're really to look, information comes in and it goes out. And that is to receive information and to send information out. And that is your headquarters in a nutshell. Simple, right? So now you understand. You know the brain, the anatomy of it, what it looks like, and you know the function. Sensation, integration, and a response. So what are the 5 senses that we have? You say 5? I'll take them. Those are 5 external senses. They help us to relate to the external environment, to interact with the external environment. They are sight through light stimulus. They are hearing through perception of sound. They are tastes, which is a chemical response where your taste buds and the food and the fluids combine together. And we have a sense of smell that reports directly to the brain and works together often with taste. That's why when your smell is gone, the food doesn't taste so good. It's bland. And we finally have touch, which is very important. It's in different parts, including with our hairs. You know how you say that your hair stood when something passed by? That's also a sense. Now, all these senses receive information from the outside. And where does this information go? I said it earlier on. It goes to your thalamus. Yes, look at your notes. Your thalamus, which is the relay center. All the senses come in and they go to your thalamus. And what does the thalamus do? The thalamus then sends this information to your cerebrum, to your brain, so to speak, for your brain to process it. And also to integrate it. What do I mean by integrated? So you walk into your home and you smell delicious cake baking in the oven. You haven't seen it, you've just smelled it, but what happens? You start to salivate, right? All these senses work together, and then when it comes into integration, your brain says, I remember what the smell is. And that's why you start to salivate. If you walked into a house and there was something else that was smelling, you would not necessarily salivate. Or even if two people walk into a house and somebody, for whatever reason, they don't like cake, one would salivate, the other would not. Why? Because all these senses are linked to our emotions. They are linked to memories of a certain thing. And therefore, your brain integrates all these different senses, what you see, what you smell, what you hear, to come together and report to say, this is what the appropriate response should be. So let me say that again using a different example. So you walk into a house and you smell a certain perfume, right? Two different people walking into different houses, they smell the same kind of smell, a perfume. One becomes happy in a response and they get excited. The other one becomes sad. What might be the difference? Because it's the same impulse, it's the same stimulus that went in. It's that through the smell, it went to the thalamus. The thalamus said, yes, I know what this is. Let me send it to the brain for integration and processing. For the one person, it's a memory of a perfume that their mother used to wear and now their mother has passed. So it integrates with all the feelings and the emotions associated to the death of their mother and times that have passed. For another, it's the smell of a loved one and they haven't been there, so they know that now they're home. So therefore, there's feelings of joy and the response becomes different. Isn't the body amazing? This is why it's important for us to understand what the brain system does, because when you can understand it, you can understand yourself better. You can understand why you're feeling sad from just having smelled perfume, or why you're salivating when you had actually decided that you're not going to eat cake anymore. And what does this do? This empowers you to understand that this is what the body is geared to do. We haven't even talked about what you can do about it. And actually, that is a topic on its own for next week's episode. So today we continue with just understanding the brain and what it is it does. Now you understand the whole sensations, but I said I would take the 5 senses that come from the external environment. What do I mean by that? Because even internally, we have senses. Absolutely. How does your brain know that you're full? Yes, your stomach stretches, that's a sensation. And then your stomach, through the nerves, reports to the brain to say, we are full, so therefore, what's the appropriate response? That you need to then stop eating, hopefully. And in the same way, how do you know you're hungry? Your stomach releases a hormone that says to the brain, we have been fasting for a while, we have not had any food, we need the hypothalamus to release hunger pangs so that this person can eat something. And that's how you get to have your appetite and any other passion that arouses inside of you. Isn't the body just absolutely amazing? Stay tuned as we continue to talk and introduce you to the headquarters. We'll see you right after this. Welcome back to Wonderfully Made, where the mystery of your body is revealed right here on Life Destiny TV, your life, your destiny. I hope you're enjoying yourself in understanding your brain and how it works. You know the anatomy of the brain now, you understand the sensations that are coming in, you understand that they have to be integrated. That's how you end up responding in different ways to different stimuli. That's what we call it when it comes in. You understand that apart from the 5 senses that are outside of your body, there are also senses that are within your own body that tells the hypothalamus exactly what it is it needs to do what? To maintain homeostasis, an internal steady state. Now I want us to look at the response. The body has options to respond in, to simplify it, in 2 ways. Either a response can be voluntary or the response can be involuntary. Today I would like us to focus on the involuntary response. This is what we call the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic, it sounds like automatic, right? Yes, it means it just does it on its own. You don't have to do anything. You know this, right? Because when you put your hand on a hot stove, if you had to wait for your brain to process and for you to think about it and to say, I think this is not a good place for my hand to be, by the time you make that decision, your hand would have burnt. But immediately you're able to take it off. But that's not even what we're talking about. What I'm talking about when we speak about the autonomic nervous system, I'm talking about what happens when you eat. Remember when we did the digestive system? And I said the pancreas knows when to release pancreatic juices. Yes, that's a function of a smooth muscle allowing the secretion coming from the brain. Because when the food moves from the stomach in its acidic state, moving into the small intestine where you cannot have anything acidic, the senses inside of the small intestine sends a message to the brain to say, this food is too acidic, we need help. And then the brain will automatically, you don't have to even think about it. Your brain would then tell the pancreas to release bicarbonate to do what? To neutralize the acid. But what about your heart beating? Imagine if the control of your heart beating was left in your own hands. Or breathing. You would have to remember to breathe, to have your heart beat, and to blink, all at the same time. This is the function of the autonomic nervous system. All these things are happening without you even being aware. When you're sleeping, when you're working at your desk, when you're running. Why when you're running? Because then your body already knows that there are changes that needs to happen. We know this to be very powerful when we look at what we call the fight or flight response. You've heard about it, right? So it's in the afternoon, you get home and you open your garage, and what's waiting inside of your garage? It's a lion, right? And then you think, there's a lion in my garage. You've got 2 options. Either you're going to fight the lion or you're going to fly from your lion. But while you're thinking about what's going to happen, already what starts to happen to your body? is that your heart starts beating faster, right? Your pupils get clear. You can see that this lion is big and it looks hungry. Your vision is completely focused. Your breathing starts to become more rapid. Why? Because your body is preparing itself for whatever it is you're going to choose to do. Whether you're going to choose to fight the lion or fly from the lion, you know that you need the extra blood flow to the muscles. You know you need the extra oxygen to actually take part in this fighting or in running. So your lungs need to be opened up. And this is what the autonomic nervous system does. The body is truly amazing. Aren't you glad you have stuck it out and you're watching this show where we're saying, meet the headquarters. Here are the sensations coming into your body. Here they're being integrated and processed and sent to your gray matter for processing. And your gray matter, to one person, it will say fly. To me, if I see a lion, I'm going to run. But for somebody like Samson in the Bible, he might decide that he's going to fight the lion because maybe he's stronger. But whatever it is, your body automatically knows what it is it's supposed to do to be able to get you out of whatever situation. Having sensed what's happening on the outside and also having sensed what's happening on the inside. Now, you know, if there's one thing we love to do on this show is to show you what can you do about all of these things. If this is an automatic response to stimulation that you see from the outside, then is knowing all of this just for the sake of knowing it? It never is just for the sake of knowing it. There are always things that you can do to help your body, because this is what the whole show is, that once you can have an understanding of the structure, the anatomy, and how it works, then if you want to control the outcome, it's important to have this. So we always go back to the 8 laws of health, which is New Start. New Start really to do with the brain? How does that work? Well, what do you think your brain feeds on? Absolutely. If you're not looking at the law of nutrition, the blood that is flowing to your brain might not be carrying sufficient food in terms of glucose because your body works on glucose, or it might not even, when you look at the law of air, it might not be carrying enough oxygen. We've already said that the brain cannot function for more than 4 minutes without oxygen. So it's important to know that the air that you're breathing is helpful. If you're working in an office and you want your mind to be absolutely clear for the task that you're doing, you need to have your windows open. You need to be eating food that is going to feed your brain, but you also need to be able to rest your brain. We've said a lot of things today, and I hope that you're looking in your notes and thinking, wow, now I can fully understand. Even as you're reading those notes of yours, it is light stimulation going into your mind, being integrated and turning into understanding. Now tell me you're not wonderfully made. We'll see you soon after this. Welcome back to Wonderfully Made, where the mystery of your brain is being revealed right now today here on Life Destiny TV, your life, your destiny. Today we introduced you to your headquarters, to your brain, to that central part of your being that controls everything that is happening. And it's stimulated by the things that come from the outside through the 5 senses and the things that are happening inside through the different senses. And we also spoke about integration, how that information that comes in is taken forward to the cortex or to the brain for processing so that an appropriate response can be given. And in terms of responses, today we focused on automatic responses, which are driven by the autonomic nervous system, which controls how your heart is beating, how you're breathing. And we also then started to look at what are some of the things that you can do to help your brain to function optimally. We spoke about how the brain is supplied by blood, and the blood brings in oxygen and it brings in food. And that's why if there's a disruption of blood flow to the brain can die. This is simply what we know as a stroke. A stroke means there's been an interruption of blood to the brain, and depending on which part of the brain was affected by the limitation in the blood flow, then you'll see that some people will not be able maybe to speak, or some people will not be able to walk, or one side of the body will be paralyzed. And it's important that blood flow be kept in the right conditions for the brain not to die, because we said only 4 minutes is what is required without oxygen. Now we also want to look at what other things can you do. Exercise, because exercise allows to improve blood flow to the brain as well as the oxygen that is going to the brain. Being temperate with the use of your mind. A lot of us are abusing our minds in how we work. The hours that we work, not getting sufficient sleep, sitting in front of the television is not resting your mind, except if you're watching the show to educate yourself so that you know how better to do things. But also there's a thing called multitasking, where you do various things at the same time, because now you can imagine there's an overstimulation of the brain. Different senses are going into the body and you're trying to do too many things, and therefore you are overworking your brain in the same way that you could overwork your stomach with how you eat. So multitasking is really not a good idea, not even for women. If you're struggling to focus, try doing one thing at a time and ensuring that you take a break from the work. And in terms of resting as well, if you have a television in your bedroom, I would advise that you take it out, because some people sleep with these stimulus still playing in the background, and it means when you're sleeping, your mind is not fully resting because it's still being constantly stimulated. And we live in an era of overstimulation. The colors are bright, the music is loud. All of this can be overwhelming on our bodies. And what about trusting in God? Remember, the flight and fight response does not necessarily relate to lions. How often do we find lions in our garages? But what are the lions that are in your life? Do you look at your bills and you feel like you're seeing a lion? Do you look at your family members and you feel like you're seeing a lion because the relationships you have with them is not good? Do you go to work and you look at your boss and your colleagues? So your body might constantly be in a situation where you feel like, I just want to leave this place, which is a flight response. Or you're saying, I just want to fight with these people, which is a fight response. And therefore your body is in constant stress. It means your heart is overworking. It means your breathing is not proper. It means you are in a stressful situation. So when you trust in God, you bring all of these problems before God and you become transformed in how you improve your relationship with other people and how you see your burdens. I trust that this has been very, very helpful. But as exciting as this episode is, and I absolutely understand and I love the brain, what we're going to be talking about next week is something exciting. We will be speaking about the frontal lobe, which is where you reason, you make judgments, you make willpower. Are you struggling to give up certain foods? Watch next week where you understand the interplay, the relationship between your frontal lobe, where your personality and your decision-making processes happen, and your limbic system, which is, we haven't spoken about it today, but we did. It's the thalamus together with the hypothalamus, together with the pituitary gland, all of these coming together and deciding, are you hungry or are you not? I know I'm leaving you with more questions than you probably started, but you also have a better understanding how the body and how the brain specifically operate. Be sure to visit us on our Facebook page, which is simply Wonderfully Made. Wonderfully Made. Post your questions, post any other comments that you have. And we're looking forward to see you next week when we do part 2 of Headquarters. And from me, Khomotso Mogapi, I say good night.